Here we are. Thanks for, Conal, thanks for coming back again and again.
Thank you very much.
It's been a little bit of a little tough in scheduling all the talks and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but it's great. What do you think of the ALCon event so far?
I've been thrilled so far. I've been having a great week.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I'd read a lot of books and articles and listened to talks by some of the speakers here.
Yeah.
And it was really great to come down and meet everybody, the league officers who I'd gotten to know.
In person, right?
It's been a great experience. And you, of course, you're on the other side of a computer screen now, and it's quite a pleasure.
I feel like we know each other anyway.
Right.
Yeah, it's a little bit more 3D though.
Yes, that's true. High definition.
Yeah, that's very cool. We have interviewed a number of people here, a lot of young people.
Mm-hmm.
You're certainly a great inspiration as a young astronomer.
Thank you.
I really want to thank you for all the contributions you made to Global Star Party. I think it's fantastic, and hope to see you continue on with it. So what did you do here at ALCon?
Well, what haven't I done? I've been pretty busy since I got here.
Yeah.
Wednesday night I came in, we started off with a GNTO, that's the Albuquerque Astronomical Society's main dark sky site.
Okay, so you went out there?
I did.
Okay.
Went down, did a little bit of nightscape photography, got to look through some of the big dobs there. That was a fun experience.
Sure.
And then listened to some of the talks, got to hang out with some of the officers. It's been a really great time.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. Did you get to see or interact with Harrison Schmitt, Apollo 17 astronaut Harrison Schmitt at all?
No, I saw him around a little bit, but I didn't
Okay.
get the chance to talk to him.
Yeah.
Seems like a very interesting guy, though.
Very interesting guy. Who did you meet here that you're really happy that you were able to meet face to face?
Quite a few people. Since I joined the league, the first program I submitted was the Lunar Observing Program, and the League Observing Programs, they can just suck you right in. They're wonderful.
Sure.
And Chuck Allen is the observing coordinator of that, and
see.
he helped me get involved with a lot of outreach efforts, and thanks to him, I've been able to do a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to be here without him, so it was really great to meet him and some of his stories about observing, and met Scott Harrington and his brothers as well. They talked about some of their binocular observing.
Right.
So I feel like I've been
He was
able
just on, so.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I've been able to sample parts of the hobby and meet some of the people who've helped me do some of the work I'm doing in outreach now. It's really been a pleasure.
That's awesome. Let's go back and talk a little bit about you and how you got into astronomy. What was the tipping point? Were you always like I think William? I'm messing up on his last name right now, but he won 2 Horkheimer Awards back to back here at this event. And he was mentioning he got interested in astronomy at age 4. How did it work out for you?
I mean, for me, it's kind of hard to say there was like one eureka moment where I got really involved. But I've had an interest in it for a long time. I remember having books as a young kid about different space flight vehicles and the planets in the solar system.
Okay.
And it kind of captures your attention because
Sure.
when you're a kid, you're curious about everything. And
Yeah.
that's lasted to this day for me. So when I was 13, I got my first telescope and took it out, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I started going up a learning curve. I looked at the moon and Jupiter that first night, and then got a little bit deeper into the hobby, and now I'm doing some of the observing programs.
And you shared a lot of that with us on Golden Star Party here. Some of your first images, some of your the way that you felt about seeing the Milky Way rising above the tree line and stuff like that. And some of your earlier accomplishments, but some of your more recent accomplishments in astrophotography. I think that your big inspiring message is just to get started, get going, to look up at the sky and then to share that experience. You've done a lot of that. You started an astronomy club. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, the high school astronomy club?
Sure. So I'd been an amateur astronomer for a couple of years. It was 2016. I started, I guess, observing, if you could put a date on that.
Okay.
And in 2019, October, I decided to found an astronomy club at my high school. And I don't know why I didn't think of it earlier, but I knew so many people who were asking me about images I was getting and some of the observing I was doing. And I met a couple of interested friends, and we started this club together.
Okay.
And I was astonished at the interest. It really, put a smile on my face, because I remember going to the principal of the high school first, and I said, what would it take to start a club? He said, well, this, and this, your officers, clear it with me and come out with some programs. And one of the requirements he laid out was, he said, I'd like to see a list of at least 15 students who express interest. Of course, there's some bit of a dropout rate, but, to see some interest. So I come back to his office maybe 2 or 3 days later with a list of 37 names.
Wow.
And I remember handing it to him and seeing his face. And that was one of my favorite moments, knowing that there was so much interest in there. And I hear a lot of people today say, well, maybe young people don't have the interest. Maybe they're distracted. They do. They absolutely do. Yeah. And that's an important message to learn.
Yeah.
So I started that high school club, and we had a couple different events. I was able to look at some of the physics side of things, black holes and planets, some questions people had, and then look at more of the observing side of things, because I really think it's important to know that these topics don't just exist in books or in movies and documentaries.
Yeah.
These are things you can go out and see for yourself, and that's something I want to do.
Connection.
Yeah.
So, on one of our global star parties, you talked about, because all of us that are so-called graying in the hobby, now I'm one of those guys. Okay, I was very interested at age 9, 10 years old in astronomy.
Mm-hmm.
There was a gap about 10 years, and then I get interested at about 20 years old, really interested in it, and that's been nonstop since that time. I'm now 63. Okay. There's just been so many wonderful experiences and stuff like that no one has to explain to me why someone should get involved in astronomy. But there is a difference in approaching young people versus an older group. And I think a lot of the people that are older just don't know how to get their arms around it. They don't know. They really want to support youth in astronomy. They don't know how to really quite go about it. What would you recommend?
Well, I've learned a couple of different things since I started programs.
Yeah.
When I was working with high school students, I came to the conclusion that you have to meet them where they are, and that applies with any audience.
Sure.
And a lot of teenagers and adolescents, they're on social media and the internet quite a lot,
Yep.
so I put resources there. I developed a website, and I had some information there. Here are books, podcasts, shows, whatever those resources might be, if you wanted to get more involved. And then I tried to think about what would they want to do in school, so I had some hands-on activities. What social media sites would they use to see photography and things like that?
I see.
But then I learned, I started a library program recently with younger kids. It was meant for 7 to 11, and that age range, you could extend that quite a little bit. And those kids are much more hands-on. They're not on the internet as much because everything is, very, hands-on for them.
Sure.
So I figured that they'd like coloring sheets. We did a program on exoplanets. They designed their own exoplanet.
Cool.
And I was pleasantly surprised with the questions I got. They'd say, well, what if I put rings around my exoplanet like Saturn has, or water, because there might be life there?
Yeah.
And it kind of gets the gears in their head turning when they can do something hands-on. So I'd say for younger audiences, probably elementary and early middle school, they'd want to do something more hands-on and something that they could go out and see, and observing would play right into that. And then for older kids, maybe high school and college-age students, I'd focus more on the social media and internet side of things, because it's easily accessible, and they're so busy with so many different things that if you want to access astronomy, that's a good place to put it.
In your experience with the Astronomical League, what do you think that the Astronomical League has to offer young astronomers?
Well, we heard a couple of days ago that John Goss was talking about some of their new outreach materials and the YouTube channel and the Facebook page, things that they're starting to put out online. And I think those materials would be really great for younger people. And there are also some of the observing programs that I've enjoyed quite a lot. One is called Universe Sampler. There's one called Astronomy Before the Telescope. There are a couple of these programs that are well engineered for someone coming in and saying, I see all these stars and I want to learn a little bit more. And that's a good place to start, I think, with those early observing programs.
So when do you think is a good age for someone to join a club or something more structured?
If I were to guess, and it is kind of speculation here, because my club was high school based, and I haven't worked with younger students in clubs as much. Probably around the time I started observing or being interested in astronomy, maybe 7, 8, or 9. I think that would be a place where you could start to go.
About my age when I got really interested.
It seems to me like that's a common age for when a lot of people get interested, but it's very hard to pin down a specific number. Now, books are a great resource. The public library is a great resource. So that might be a little less structured, and you might want to look at that as kind of like a gradient. You start learning more and working with more people, and then maybe a club or something more structured and I guess official, you might say. That I'd say around that age would be a good time.
That would be a good time. I like the idea of the coloring exoplanets and doing this kind of thing. I think I probably would have done that as in my elementary school years. I noticed too. Also, my daughters, they're in their 30s, and they have now very sophisticated color books, right? So they do that just to kind of unwind or something like that. But some of them are quite intricate. So, and I think the tactile part of creating something really makes your mind kind of dive into it.
Right.
So maybe that's a tool that can be used both for youth and adults. Do you get approached by other astronomy clubs or anyone to ask you about, hey, Conal, how do we get more youth involved in our club?
It's happened a couple of times. I was at Northeast Astronomy Forum a couple of years ago in 2017 and 2019. Here at ALCon, after I gave some talks and shared my experience with people, they were curious as to what I learned about younger audiences.
Sure.
And I can't say I know everything about working with those groups because I feel like I've just started doing this outreach.
Right.
But I've learned that with any audience, you have to meet them where they are. And for kids, that would be a more hands-on program. Adolescents, that might be more internet-based. So if I were to send a message to outreach coordinators and outreach officers, I would say that's something essential to take away. And I think it just takes some hard work to get that off the ground if you're looking to meet people where they are.
Yeah, it's all hard work, but we love it. So it's
of course.
It doesn't really feel hard if you love it, right? So I would say that's part of the secret too. That's certainly my secret. I love being involved in astronomy outreach. I love telescopes. I love talking to people like you. So it's all very inspirational to me, and I just can't imagine having life of any other kind. So you're here at ALCon. Did you get to talk or?
I spoke on a panel earlier. The Diversity is Our Strength panel.
Okay.
And if I recall earlier, I think it was meant to be more youth-based originally, but of course we came around to thinking, well, we want this to look like the United States, our Astronomical League.
Sure.
So I think diversity is kind of a broader subject to discuss when we're looking at bringing more people in.
People, different ages, different backgrounds.
Right.
I understand.
And I think the conclusion we came away from, if there was anything from that panel that I was on, it would be that you can't always assume where someone is coming from and what their background is with regard to astronomy. Sure. But astronomy is a common language. If they're at one of your events, if they're at a club meeting, then you know you speak a common language. And I think that's a really good place to start, no matter what group you're working with.
That's cool. That's good advice too. So, all right. So let's talk about your future. You're graduated from high school already, right? You're at a university now.
Yes,
I'm
at Penn State University right now. I'll be starting my sophomore year in a couple of weeks in aerospace engineering.
Wow.
And it's been a lot of fun so far. I'm learning bits and pieces about astronomy. They're somewhat tangential fields. I love doing this as a hobby, but I love the hands-on and, getting my hands dirty.
You showed a rocket that you guys had built, a rocket engine, is that right?
Yes. That was an engine we were working on. There's a competition out at White Sands, and it's mainly meant for colleges and universities, but there are groups all around the world that come to do this. So I joined this organization called SED, Students for Exploration and Development of Space, and we participate in this competition. Now, so many of these groups have worked with solid rocket motors, which are easier to build, and it is a rocket engine, so there's nothing, straightforward, and that's kind of the fun of it.
Okay.
But there are
What's
only...
your engine? Was it a solid...
Well, not this one, which is why I like it so much. There are only about 20 universities in the U.S. working on a liquid engine to compete in this competition. And we just started this out. I think planning was done a couple years ago, and I joined the team freshman year. and we're still trying to figure out our way forward. There's a lot we don't know, but this engine was ethanol and nitrous oxide based, and we mounted this on a trailer, a test stand back in May, and did our first fire.
Yeah.
That was very exciting to work on something, and I think a lot of people in the astronomical communities would see something like that as interesting because our great space telescopes, Webb, Kepler, and Hubble, they had to get there somehow, and this is the way.
Every amateur astronomer that I know loves to see a rocket launch. They
Oh,
love
absolutely.
knowing that we've got spacecraft in space, you know, studying the planets. You know, we eat it all up. And all of us wish that we could somehow maybe take a little bit step further and be involved in it somehow.
Of course, yeah.
You know, I joined the National Young Astronomers. Excuse me, not National Young Astronomers. We just have an award. It is the Solar System Ambassadors program with NASA.
Right.
And you know, it's an amazing program. I think you're old enough actually to become a Solar System Ambassador.
That'd be fantastic.
So, yeah,
I'd love to look into that.
They have new enrollment each year. You get, I mean, the resources. You know, you're going to be talking to leading people in space exploration fields. So I think you'll enjoy that.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, yeah. So you see probably a future in making spacecraft, being involved. I mean, would you like to join SpaceX, for example? Or?
I'd sure hope so. A lot of the places like that.
Yeah.
I've realized since joining that team, I've gravitated towards propulsion the most. That seems like the aspect of aerospace engineering I like the most, more on the space side of things. And it's hard to say exactly where I could end up because, you know, I've just finished freshman year and there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Sure.
You have SpaceX with their massive facility in Texas working on Starship and their
the average age
giant
of
booster.
employees working at SpaceX is 25.
Really?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I visited the facility in LA, and my mind was utterly blown.
Wow.
I mean, it was just, you know, it looked like something. It looked like something that Disney would, Imagineering would have built. Okay, you know. So, but they're doing it for real, and everyone there is solidly convinced that they'll be on the moon, they'll be on Mars. You know, it's coming up in just a few years, and so just like, well, yeah, we're working towards that. It's like, yeah, we're building it right now. You can see it right here.
I know.
You know, so pretty amazing. So I think that you're in a good spot. I think for sure that you will be involved in any field that you want to in space exploration.
I hope so. It seems like there's a lot of opportunity out there. And like I said, it seemed like just a few years ago, going to the moon and Mars, that was a realistic goal, but it didn't feel quite tangible.
Fiction, you know?
Right.
I mean, going to the moon, you know, of course, I'm old enough to remember, you know, Armstrong and Aldrin putting boots on the moon and stuff like that, and watching. You know, it was just, it was fantastic. I can't even describe the feeling very well to you. Probably the closest documentary that kind of gives you some feeling of it was the Apollo 11 documentary that was shot in 4K or remastered in 8K or something like that. I highly recommend it to you.
Was that the one that came out, I think, for the 50th anniversary?
Yeah, it came out during the 50th.
Okay.
Did you see it?
I didn't see it, but I've heard about it.
You got to go watch that.
Wow, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah. I have a DVD of it. I'll try to dig it up and send it out.
All right.
Right. Anyways, glad to see you here at the Astronomical League convention. Do you recommend people join the league?
I absolutely do. I can talk a little bit about before I joined the league.
Yeah.
I was coming up with some observing list. I'd look in Burnham Celestial Handbook or some star atlases and things like that, come up with some objects.
Yeah.
And at that same time, while I was making my own lists, I was also just working by myself, trying to figure things out and making mistakes along the way, which is one way to learn for sure.
Sure.
But since I joined the league, there have been so many people who've taken time to mentor me and help me develop my skills. There's the observing programs. You have ALCon like this, where you can meet and socialize with people in your hobby and get to know their experiences and skills a lot better. So I'd highly suggest joining the league as an amateur astronomer. It's certainly a great place to develop and further your skills and contribute to keeping this hobby alive and well and pushing it forward.
Yeah. Well, we've got some exciting stuff coming up. We've got 2 big eclipses coming through the United States. We have, I believe, by 2024, we're at least going to see one of the Artemis missions go around the moon, which is kind of like the beginnings of what it was like for Apollo. So
yes.
That's very easy to think about. It was interesting listening to Apollo 17 astronaut Harrison Schmitt, because he was talking about the Artemis program in comparison to Apollo, and he thinks we're going to need much larger heavy lifting rockets to get us all the way to the moon again. Not that they can't do it with Artemis, but they'll have to refuel or something to make it really work. So, but we'll see. We'll see what actually happens. But I have no doubt that the young engineers working on all these programs today are going to get us back to the moon. We'll colonize, and then on to Mars. So,
I sure hope to see that.
You're going to be part of it. So.
And there's hardware on the pad right now. SLS is slated to launch in about a month or so.
Yeah.
There's Starship coming up. 110 tons to low Earth orbit, I read, of what that vehicle will be capable of.
Right.
So I mean, there are similarities to Apollo, but we aren't going for, so-called flags and footprints with science tacked on.
Yeah.
We're going there to stay for a couple of weeks or days, take samples, do some study there, get some scientists going, and really start to reach out into the solar system. And that's all going to be in the next couple of years. It's very exciting.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad to be alive for it, and I'm glad that you're here too.
Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to have more speakers coming on. We have Dan Higgins from Astroworld TV was kind enough to prepare a little something for us, so I'll run that. And anyways, stay tuned for more ALCon 2022 live from Albuquerque. Thanks.
The Heliophysics Big Year is a global celebration of solar science and the sun's influence on Earth and throughout the solar system, and we want you to be a part of it. We challenge you to participate in as many sun science activities as possible, beginning with the annular eclipse in 2023 and ending with Parker Solar Probe's closest approach to the sun in December 2024. Space is increasingly part of the human domain. By studying the sun's influence in space and its interactions with planets, we learn how to better protect astronauts and robotic missions from space weather, and to develop technology that protects the very infrastructure we rely on here on Earth, such as power grids and GPS signals. NASA's Heliophysics Division studies the sun's influence on everything in our solar system, from the very core of the sun to the very edge where the sun's atmosphere meets interstellar space. We have 20 heliophysics missions that are operational and 14 more under development. The Heliophysics Big Year will highlight the work that we're doing to understand our star and to mitigate the effects of space weather. The Big Year is a concept that originated with citizen scientists in the birdwatching community. During their Big Year, birders attempt to observe and study as many species as possible during a calendar year, and we are challenging you to do the same with our sun. During the Heliophysics Big Year, you will have the opportunity to participate in many solar science events, like watching solar eclipses, experiencing an aurora, participating in citizen science projects, and lots of other fun sun-related activities. So please be sure to look out for opportunities to be part of our Heliophysics Big Year.